Good afternoon again. I'm not sure what I just ate, but it was delicious. I know, right? I actually had to read about it. It was a little Gulf snapper there. We're here to protect the fish, but by God, we'll eat them as well. We have a lot of public officials with us today. I'd like to ask those of you who are public officials, you're so important, so crucial to what we do and what we strive to accomplish. If you would stand and be recognized, and if you are seeking office, please stand and be recognized right now. Let's give you a big hand. God, we have a whole table. Wow. Thank you. And I'm not going to ask you to stand, but if you have a place on the bay, a first home, a second home, or have had or are going to have maybe one day, just clap for me. I figured as much. That's wonderful. All right, continue to enjoy your snapper. And we ask that you look at the screens. And my beautiful face is about to be replaced with a video presentation.
Here at the Galveston Bay Foundation, we strive to ensure that one of our most valuable natural resources remains a beautiful and vibrant place for generations to come. To accomplish that goal, we rely on the generous support and hard work of organizations and individuals like you.
The Galveston Bay Foundation is involved in many different types of programs. One is, of course, just acquiring land for preservation purposes. It's also doing beach shoreline protection. They're also doing things such as oyster shell recycling. So we're really doing a very diverse system of trying to educate and maintain the integrity of the bay. I see things from a viewpoint of how things interact, and this is a very interesting system here. And as long as we maintain the quality of the system, then we will make sure that we have a very viable and healthy bay.
Today, we are proud to honor our 2015 Guardian of the Bay Award recipients.
The Galveston Bay Foundation Guardian of the Bay Award program came about because the foundation really wanted to point out the people who are trying to help the Bay. And we go through that process to ensure that one business, one government, and one individual really is doing their part to protect the Galveston Bay.
For its enduring commitment to protecting Galveston Bay by encouraging restoration work throughout the county, including partnering with the Galveston Bay Foundation on projects such as the McCollum Park Shoreline Enhancement Project, the annual crab trap removal site at Fort Anahuac Park, and the preservation of a 500-acre tract of land in Chambers County that will serve as wildlife habitat, provide public access, and protect a supply of clean drinking water for area residents. Chambers County.
Chambers County is a very integral part of the Galveston Bay system. We have a park in Chambers County. It's called McCollum Park. It's about a 14-acre park. It has about 800 feet on the shoreline of Trinity Bay. And when Hurricane Ike made landfall, about 70 feet of land was removed from the park at that time. And so we partnered with Galveston Bay Foundation to put in a living shoreline along McCollum Park. The Marshmania project this year with the Galveston Bay Foundation, they selected McCollum Park as one of the restoration areas for shoreline. And they had a wonderful turnout. About 70 volunteers or so came out to plant cordgrass. And so it's going to make a big difference. It's a benefit to many people. We're really honored and delighted that Galveston Bay Foundation saw fit to honor Chambers County in this way. We're very grateful to them. But in turn, we actually honor Galveston Bay Foundation. We appreciate so much of what they do.
For its long commitment to preserving Galveston Bay through the donation of wetland plants grown at their Cedar Bayou Eco Center, the support of wetlands education in partnership with GBF's Get Hip to Habitat education program, and for the countless NRG employees who volunteer at multiple GBF events, including Marshmania, Bay Day, and Bike Around the Bay. NRG Energy.
NRG is responsible for generating electricity that's safe, reliable, and low cost. And the water resource that we borrow from the Bay is essential for our business. And so we take that very seriously, and we want to be a good environmental steward and do everything we can to protect that water and at the same time do other things that can help make the bay a better environment. We have a facility close to the bay, east of town, where we have what we call Cedar Bayou, and we have 24 ponds there that grow cordgrass that we use for marshland mitigation, where we want to go out. Galveston Bay decides they want to go in and recreate some marsh area. And we use this cordgrass to go out and do it. I think last year we provided 132,000 plugs of cordgrass, and it's a huge accomplishment for our employees that love to give back.
For her dedication to helping our next generation learn about Galveston Bay and its significance to our region, while inspiring them to embrace science in school. Cindy Wilems.
What I enjoyed most about working with Ms. Wilems in the Get Hip to Habitat program was the fact that she's very outgoing, and it makes learning easier and more fun.
She gets really excited, and then she gets us excited about it too.
Get Hip to Habitat is a program that's designed by Galveston Bay Foundation. This year we had 300 students participate in the program. Not only did they get to go outside and get hands-on things, but we bridged the gap between themselves and the ecosystem. They learned what cordgrass is there for and what they need to do to make sure that it stays around, because it is a very important part of our ecosystem. When I see these kids get all excited, and when I see a kid touch a fish for the very first time, you know, even though they've been scared to do it, or you see these kids, they get out in the mud and their moms didn't let them get out in the mud growing up. They have no idea what it's like. Some of them haven't even been to the bay. All they've been is to like Kemah. So getting to see them actually experience those things, it's why I'm still a teacher. When Bob called me and he told me that they would like to honor me with the Guardian of the Bay Citizen Award, my husband, Craig's, was like, what's going on? He says my face was just like complete white. So I was like, yeah, I just got this. And, it was amazing.
People should support the Galveston Bay Foundation because we're here to educate the public and to ensure that the integrity of this bay is maintained.
We love Galveston Bay Foundation. We encourage people to support the Galveston Bay Foundation. It's very important for everyone, whether you work, play, or simply enjoy the bay.
Everybody should be a member in our area. Everybody should be able to give what they can to the Galveston Bay Foundation to allow them to continue their stewardship, allow them to, build their education program.
Galveston Bay Foundation does a great job. They use the money that's donated wisely. They use the contributions of people's time wisely. And they provide feedback on how are we helping the bay? How is it truly benefiting the bay? And we see that all the time.
So those of you who don't have a house on the bay yet, and now you know why the rest of us do. Here again is Bob Stokes, President of Galveston Bay Foundation, for our awards presentation. I'd also like to bring up our Board of Directors Chairman, Timothy Love. And there he is. Hey. Welcome aboard. We applaud NRG Energy for truly going, as you saw, above and beyond in their efforts to protect Galveston Bay. Please welcome to the stage Guardian of the Bay Honoree for Business, NRG Energy, represented here today by NRG's Executive Vice President and President of the Gulf Coast Region, Mr. John Reagan. Congratulations, John. We're expecting great things from your stadium. Chambers County, it's not just a way to get to the Golden Nugget, is it? I love Chambers County. It's beautiful. It is, and fun people too. So we're proud to honor Chambers County for its continued efforts to preserve and protect the natural resources of Galveston Bay. Please welcome to the stage our Guardian of the Bay Award honoree for Government, Chambers County, represented by Precinct 4 Commissioner Rusty Sinak.
And County Judge Jimmy Silvers.
And County Judge Jimmy Celia. 2 for 1. Give it up. Nobody gets to where they are in life without a teacher. And you saw briefly what a wonderful teacher Cindy Wilems is. In addition to what you saw in that video, Cindy received the J. Frank Dobie High School Teacher of the Year Award in the 2012-2013 school year. That doesn't surprise me a bit. And as a result of her efforts, the number of aquatic science classes at Dobie High School has grown from just 3 classes in 2011 to 18 classes this year. That's what teaching is all about. Please welcome to the stage our Guardian of the Bay Award honoree for the community, Cindy Wilems. Congratulations. And now, once again, here's Bob Stokes. Okay, you take it away.
All right, thank you, Frank. Okay, we are going to move to a little presentation that's not on your agenda, but I'm really excited to do it. We wanted to recognize a long-term friend of the Galveston Bay Foundation, someone who's been a supporter of GBF, and an employee of one of our honorees, NRG. Ben Carmine is here today. He's worked with NRG and its predecessor companies for nearly 4 decades. During that time period, he's worked as a volunteer and an advocate for the Galveston Bay Foundation, almost dating back to our inception 28 years ago. He's not only a friend of our organization, but I consider him a personal friend of mine and a friend of many on our staff. Ben is retiring this Friday after 38 years. And he's currently the Regional Environmental Director of NRG Texas Power, and we really wanted to let him know how much we appreciate his support over the years and wish him well in his retirement. Ben, come on up here and be recognized. We're going to give you a small token of our appreciation. We know everyone at NRG will miss Ben, but we assume he'll have even more volunteer time for GBF in his retirement. Ben, thank you so much. We were honored to work with you. Thank you, Ben. Really, it's been a pleasure, and as I said, we expect to see even more of you now that you won't have a day job. Okay, so moving on. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce you to our keynote speaker today, Captain Brian Penoyer. I've got some things to say about you first, Captain. You don't need to come up just yet. Captain is with the United States Coast Guard, and we got to know Captain Penoyer about 1.5 years ago, frankly under some difficult circumstances when we were working with the Coast Guard to manage volunteers responding to the Texas City Y oil spill, a spill of approximately 168,000 gallons of oil near Galveston in spring of 2014. We recognized very quickly that he was a man with great leadership skills, and it was a pleasure to work with him and the entire Coast Guard on this oil spill response, and we are truly honored to have him here with us today. Captain Penoyer is a native of the Chicago area and a graduate of the University of Chicago. He joined the Coast Guard Sector Houston-Galveston in 2013 and is a 2015 recipient of Coast Guard's Type 1 Incident Commander qualification. Captain Penoyer previously served at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and as the Deputy Chief of Coast Guard Congressional Affairs. He also served as Admiral Thad Allen's liaison in the Office of the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security during the Deepwater Horizon incident and supported Admiral Allen during the Hurricane Katrina response. So this guy has been busy. We were lucky to have him, truly. He holds a Master of Public Policy degree from the University of Maryland. He also holds a Master of Arts in National Security and Strategic Studies from the Naval War College and is a graduate of the College of Naval Command and Staff at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, where he received the Director's Award for Academic Excellence. You detect a theme here. He's been awarded 5 Meritorious Service Medals, 3 Coast Guard Commendation Medals, and a Department of Transportation 9/11 Medal, and several campaign medals, including the Southwest Asia Service Model. Please help me welcome Captain Brian Penoyer as our keynote speaker, and help me say thanks that he was kind enough to join us here today. I want to get into the fact that he's just a really good guy, too.
Well, on behalf of the nation and the United States Coast Guard, I apologize for the biography. So it truly is an honor to be here with you today. I cannot imagine a more profound honor than to address this foundation. And I'm going to yield the balance of my time to Cindy Wilems. Cindy, where are you? No, I'm just kidding. I promised I wouldn't do that to her. So what I'm going to do very briefly is I just want to introduce the Coast Guard to you, and I want to talk a little bit more importantly about why a Coast Guardsman is has the temerity to speak to you about the importance of the Galveston Bay and the unbelievably special organization that you know as the Galveston Bay Foundation. So for those of you who don't know the U.S. Coast Guard and don't know me, I'm the captain of the port, which makes me totally, ultimately, and irrevocably responsible for a safe, secure, clean, and orderly maritime domain on the Galveston Bay and all federal waters from Lake Charles, Louisiana to the Matagorda Bay, 200 miles offshore to the U.S.-Mexico boundary line, and inland to a little place called Lake Texoma. So it's a small job, but really, truly, the highlight of my entire Coast Guard career. Usually at a point like this, the question that arises is, how did a guy from Chicago end up in a port like this? And I'll tell you honestly, there's a great deal that goes there. When I graduated from the University of Chicago, I knew I had an itch to serve, and I knew that I wanted to serve in uniform, but the path was very unclear. However, I had the good fortune one day in the company of my wife to be looking out on the bay water, or the lake waters, Lake Michigan, at Wilmette on the near north side of Chicago. It was a beautiful sunny day. The water was that turquoise blue that the lake gets in the summer, and just the prettiest little white Coast Guard boat came out of Station Wilmette Harbor, made a hard right turn, and the guys were waving, and I thought, I could do that. Little did I know that if you do make the mistake of becoming an officer in the Coast Guard, fun jobs are not for you. I recommend enlisting if that's your intent. So Station Wilmette Harbor was not to be in the cards for me, but I have had just an enthralling 26-year career all over the nation and the world. And I bring that to you only to introduce to you although I tell that story about being seduced by the idea of yachting on places like the Galveston Bay for a living, the truth was that I was profoundly moved, and have been for my entire career, by the connection to the outdoors. And while I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area, I grew up really across northern Illinois, and particularly in western Illinois on the Mississippi River. My folks had a place looking out over the valley, and I spent most of my youth outdoors. That has been a fortunate point for me. When my wife and I got married, we were the recipients of a wedding gift. Dear friends of ours, an older couple, had served as mentors to us. For a wedding gift, gave us a birding book and a journal. And I can think of no more profound gift to give young people than a mechanism to begin to understand and enjoy the natural environment around them. To this day, I'm a dedicated birder, and I find myself more often than I would like to admit taking the drive down to Bolivar Flats, because there just aren't that many places that you can enjoy the natural riches of the Bay Area to that level, particularly if you're a shorebird person, which I am. So let me turn from me and my environmental appreciation and talk just a little bit about the Coast Guard. For those of you who don't know the Coast Guard, we are one of the 5 armed services, which puts us at all times under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and we are happy to bring along the Junior 4 services who all had a break in service. The United States Coast Guard was founded by I believe the second act of Congress after they signed that pesky Constitution. George Washington first signed the Lighthouse Act, and second signed a bill creating the Department of Treasury, in which some guy named Alexander Hamilton stood up a small force to collect customs, because in those days, of course, there were no taxes other than customs duties, and we had a small Revolutionary War debt to pay. So while we have had continuous service since 1790, and those other 4 services of which we do not speak have broken services, we're happy to show them the way. We are, however, not part of the Department of Defense, which may surprise you as an armed service, why that would be. In fact, this is an issue that we have wrestled with since our inception, and no lesser figures than Franklin Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan have struggled. It may be an apocryphal tale, but I believe it could be true, that as President-elect Ronald Reagan was receiving his briefing, and as you may recall, he was elected on a strong defense platform, he was receiving a briefing about the U.S. Coast Guard. The sum total of his assessment was, why do I need 2 navies? Good questions. We currently reside in the Department of Homeland Security, although we've been in the Department of Transportation, and we began life in the Department of Treasury as customs agents. And I would simply say to you this. After World War II, there was a very profound initiative to merge all of the services into what we now know as the Department of Defense, and we quickly came to the conclusion that the United States Coast Guard should not be a part of the Department of Defense for a lot of good reasons. Simply put, I would say this. If you think, probably our most direct analogy is the U.S. Navy, although I'd like to say that we have more in common with the Marine Corps than we do with the Navy, partly because that's flattering, but secondarily because if you think about it, you know, the Marines are a small service and we're a small service, maybe about a quarter the size of the Marine Corps. They have a commandant and we have a commandant. They hate the Navy and we hate the Navy. And the Navy couldn't care less about either one of us. So there's a lot of commonality, but in truth, there is a lot of commonality with the Navy. So if you think about that, why would that be? Well, we are a small service, but we operate around the globe. Your United States Coast Guard has been a part of every combat campaign that has ever been conducted by the United States, dating back to the quasi-war with the French. We are right now operating a squadron of patrol boats in the Arabian Gulf. Where the armed forces are, so are we. But we are not a combatant force, and this really illustrates the point. If you think about the United States Navy, it is a combatant force. That is what it exists to do, to defend the United States homeland from invasion, to protect our shipping, and to project U.S. power abroad. Those are combatant roles. But they do other things to provide governance. They're a combatant force that occasionally does some governance. Your Coast Guard, on the other hand, is a governance force that occasionally provides combatant services. We are profoundly a civil governance agency. And in this regard, I heard Admiral Allen describe the Coast Guard. He has a number of catchy phrases. I wish I was as good at that as he is, so I just steal his. He described the Coast Guard, one of his favorite metaphors for the Coast Guard. He said, the Coast Guard represents all civil governance services in the maritime domain because we don't have the good fortune in most of the maritime domain of having state, county, and municipal governments to do that. So on the high seas, I am your fire marshal and your fire chief. I'm your constable and I'm your police chief. I put the stripes on the road, I collect the roadkill, and you name it, whatever governance function you need, I'm here to do that. I don't do that alone, and no Coast Guardsman would ever so represent. In fact, if I were to list for you all of the titles and authorities that the U.S. Congress and the President have conferred upon me as your captain of the port, all of them end in the word coordinator. There is no federal dictator over federal waters or state waters, and there is no Coast Guard large enough to execute all of those functions. My job, I like to say, is to provide unity of effort, not unity of command. So that essentially is, as they say, responsibility without authority. I get to coax, cajole, and convene meetings until we all agree. And that's the role that I was playing during the response to the oil spill that Bob began the introduction with. As the Federal On-Scene Coordinator, my job is to make sure that an adequate and timely response is undertaken. We're unlike other federal agencies in the sense that because we operate in the maritime domain, normally there is a constitutional cascade separation of powers. When the local government is overwhelmed, it approaches the state government. When the state government is overwhelmed, it approaches the federal government, and the cascade begins that way. In the maritime domain, there is no such cascade. We respond side by side. So while I'm a Fed, I'm your Fed. I'm the local Fed. I live here. Another way to say that is all responses are local, and your Coast Guard's local. So in that role, it was my great pleasure to coordinate the response using all federal, state, local, and private sector response assets. The good news for those of you who live on the Galveston Bay or care about it is that you live in the best pollution response area in the world. The bad news is that occasionally we need to prove it. And we did so during that response. I'm going to turn and talk just very briefly a little bit about the Bay. I think you all know this, but I want you to really savor for a moment the fact that this precious 600 square miles represents the 7th largest estuary in the nation, one of the richest sources of seafood in the nation. And it is also one of the most heavily used bodies of water, which is a right that every U.S. citizen has. That is a rare and precious thing. And we are unbelievably blessed to have an organization like the Galveston Bay Foundation taking care of it. During the oil spill, I was very fortunate to have already had a standing relationship with the Galveston Bay Foundation. They are, I am proud to say, a partner of the Coast Guard for all oil spills. This is a relationship that, in my experience, is unique in the nation. None of my peers, the other 36 pre-designated federal on-scene coordinators, have that. And as Admiral Allen is fond of saying, when something bad happens, citizens around the Galveston Bay and around the nation want to do something to help. So, as Admiral Allen would say, good energy has to have a place to go or it becomes bad energy. Key, the Galveston Bay Foundation. Imagine my good fortune at having a pre-existing, fully funded, fully staffed organization ready to receive volunteers. For that reason, the citizenry of the Bay were able to engage in sentinel activities across the region, helping me and helping the Bay. For those who follow the news, if you watch what recently happened outside of Los Angeles, or if you remember the Costco Busan spill, that's when the tanker hit the Golden Gate Bridge and there was a resulting oil spill a few years back, you can readily understand what it looks like when volunteers do not have such a well-oiled machine populated by people who understand the Bay to the bottom of their boots. The success of the response certainly owes a great deal to the professional oil spill responders who know how to remove oil from the environment and how to protect the environmentally sensitive areas of the Bay. But it owes equally much to the volunteers upon whose success depended the Galveston Bay Foundation. So I'm going to ask you to give the volunteer coordinators and the Galveston Bay Foundation staff a round of applause for their help. So I like to say that if you want to know anything about an organization, don't ask it what it does. Anybody that works in commercial industry will tell you a line of business is a line of business. It's profitable until it's not, and when it's not, you got to find something else to do. So a line of business can be changed literally at the stroke of a pen, and what is true for commercial businesses is also true for government agencies. If you want to know anything about the Coast Guard, don't ask us what our missions are because we can start recounting. We're responsible for fisheries and oil spill response and so on. I can give you the 13. I had the great pleasure of working on Capitol Hill and working amongst the men and women who serve their nation in elected office. I have a great deal of respect for them. The kinds of trades-offs and priority that they make are, I'm glad that they're willing to take that job on. I'm glad that I don't have to. But I also know that as they craft laws, they craft them with the stroke of a pen, and they change them with the stroke of a pen. A federal agency's list of what it does can be changed as quickly as it was created. So to understand that any federal organization or any other business entity, ask it what its culture is. How does it function? I'll tell you from the Coast Guard's perspective, we are where we began. A humanitarian service dedicated to saving lives in distress. Search and rescue defines us. And here's how. During that hearing I was telling you about after World War II, they asked the then Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Wacy, to come and testify about why he shouldn't be sucked into the Navy. He said, please don't do it. A lot of reasons. I like my uniform, a lot of different reasons. But it came down to this. He said, we need to be engaged in doing search and rescue every day so that when the Navy needs us in combat, we're there for them. The things we do in peace, we will do in war. Further, he said, you have to understand that if you expect me to ask young Coast Guardsmen to risk their very lives to save those in distress on the sea, I owe it to that same Coast Guardsman the chance to prevent that accident from happening in the very first place. Our culture, ground into the cellular DNA of every Coast Guardsman, how we approach any problem you give us, prevent and respond. Must have them both, and they must go together at all times. Imagine then the natural affinity I have with the Galveston Bay Foundation. when I look to this organization. I met the Galveston Bay Foundation through its work with our area committee and with volunteer management, which is a respond function. Imagine how pleased I was to learn of its conservation, education, and other functions. If ever there were two organizations that have the same cellular DNA, it's your Coast Guard and your Galveston Bay Foundation. So on behalf of Coast Guardsmen, 18 units, 1,200 Coast Guardsmen across the region, please accept our thanks for all that you do. Thanks very much for your time.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I can tell you, I'm a weather guy. I'm not a Coast Guard guy. The Friday before Hurricane Ike hit, the Coast Guard rescued 479 people who had not left Bolivar or the island with their helicopters. And they rescued them all afternoon until it was untenable to be performing those rescues. We still lost 87 people to Ike. But had it not been for the Coast Guard, we would have lost more like 600. And he didn't mention that, the captain didn't. We talked about oil spills, but they are very much there to save your life. And for that particular moment, you have my utmost respect. Thank you for your support of Galveston Bay Foundation. And organizations, as the captain mentioned, don't exist without a little financial support from folks like you. So please consider using the envelope on your tables. That is just a clear and free donation to the Galveston Bay Foundation. There will be staff employees with baskets outside the room for your gifts. There's the Fund of Need that we've been talking about today. And if you have a checkout for your auction items, that's right out the door here. I want to thank everybody involved today. I know that Karen Lee and Sharon Rourke, and I don't know who did all the pretty flowers, but they're just gorgeous centerpieces. So thank you for all of your work. And finally, mark your calendars for Bike Around the Bay, October 17th and 18th. The weather is going to be spot on gorgeous, just as it is this weekend. And if you want to know about that hurricane, watch me tonight. Thank you for having me. Y'all have a good afternoon.